Anyway, shall we make a start?
Yeah, let's go.
I think so.
Let's go.
Yes,
Cameras
I think
off.
so.
All right, cameras will be doing it. Right.
I think we usually put cameras off, don't we?
Yeah, can do. Yeah.
So, cool.
Everybody's watching the Miro anyway, so.
Cool. Right.
Yeah.
Hopefully everyone can hear us, even though we're turned off. Give us a wee message in the chat if you're not.
Yep.
And let's get started. So, hello everyone. Welcome to the final online session of this year. This evening is obviously the fourth event of the databases are running this session. And we're going to be focusing on SQL update queries, thinking about the SQA assessment components, and then we're going to finish off the session at the end in the breakout rooms to gather some feedback about the STACS online events for National 5 and higher.
Yeah, exciting. So here is our very aspirational timings for the evening. So at 7 to 7:10, we'll start with a quick reminder of how the online session will run. At 7:10 all the way to 20 to 8. Next, we'll focus on insert, delete, and update queries for National 5 and higher level. Then at 20 to 8 all the way to 8, we'll devote to looking at SQA course assessment and giving some hints about the completion of the course assignment tasks. And at 8 to 8:25, for the final session of the evening, we plan to give everyone an opportunity to consider the content covered in the online database sessions that we've done so far. And please provide ourselves, the STACS team, with feedback to help shape future sessions and see where we're going to go from here.
And hope all of you got that link to the Miro board. If not, the background team will put the link on the Google chat, which is already there, I suppose. Then regarding use of the Miro board, remember you can switch off all the other cursors at the top right using hide collaborators cursors. We would still ask that use is made of the cursor park to support us all being able to see what is going on. And also just a reminder of the final after party to ask us any questions.
Perfect. Right, let's get started.
Cool.
So let's begin this evening by quickly reminding ourselves of the different types of query that are mentioned in the SQA course reports, the course specification for National 5 and higher.
Right, okay, so let me make a start at National 5 level where it's pretty straightforward. We've got select queries that make use of logical operators, order by to sort on a maximum of 2 fields, and queries that use an equijoin to link the 2 tables.
And there's also the insert queries to add more records or new records to an existing table, the delete queries to remove records, and then the update queries to edit some of the details that have been stored.
Yep, and at higher level, our pupils need to know about select queries that make use of wildcards, aggregate functions, computed values, aliases, and group by to form sets of records.
Yes, but actually there's a danger there, David, that teachers overlook the need for higher pupils to also be aware of the insert, the delete, and the update queries that might come up.
Yep, totally right, Kim. So I'd actually forgotten about that myself. But these other queries, they don't often appear at higher. So do we really have to bother about them?
They don't come up often, but I suppose it's important that we cover these queries in our teaching. I mean, the recent SQA course reports that we've all been kind of looking through, they've mentioned the fact that although most candidates cope well with the select queries, many of them have a real difficulty in remembering the syntax of the other queries. Yeah,
okay, I can see why that would happen. But if we don't look over these queries at some point in our higher courses, we are putting our pupils at a disadvantage.
Yeah, and at the very least, we need to make sure our pupils revise the syntax of update and delete queries, as we know that this was specifically highlighted in the 2022 course report.
Okay, let's make a start by looking at the insert queries.
Okay. So when they're presented with a task description or an exam question, the first thing that pupils really need to do is identify the type of query that they'll be needing to solve the problem. So to analyze a problem at the analysis stage, pupils must be able to spot the relevant keyword.
Okay, so looking at the top diagram here, it looks like whenever an insert query is needed, the task description will include the words such as add a new record.
That's absolutely correct. And insert queries should be pretty straightforward, since there's not many ways of explaining that a record has to be added to a database. Not many different words.
Yeah, okay, I agree. Yeah. And I remember that this diagram from database session 1, it provides scaffolding to help pupils to come up with the end user requirements for any database task.
Yeah, that's right, David. I mean, the end user requirement for this type of task should always begin with the user should be able to add
Yeah,
and then go
okay.
from
Yeah, okay, I get that. So we've identified the end user requirement. So what's next?
there. Let's have a look. So after we've identified the end user requirement, to add details to the database, we then need to come up with like a matching functional requirement.
And this is the diagram that we use in online session 1 to scaffold the functional requirements. So the functional requirements for the insert query should always begin with the words "a query to insert."
Correct. That's absolutely great. Well done.
Yeah.
And having completed the 2 analysis tasks at the design stage, pupils may need to kind of produce a query design where there's a possible, but we've come a possible template, sorry, that they could use, which is that one there on the left-hand side.
I don't think I recognise this template, Kim.
Yeah, so it's not from the SQA's course appendices. They
Okay.
don't have one for the insert query, which is why you won't have seen it. But
Right.
we kind of identified that this is a type of query that comes up and it's really important. So we thought that the table that will be used would kind of provide a list of the fields and the matching values they would want to add.
Okay, it looks quite straightforward then. And I recognise that the query syntax insert into, I remember from session 2 that teachers should make sure that the pupils learn that insert into and not just insert. They keep missing out the into.
Absolutely. It's such a common error to forget the proposition or use the wrong one instead. So if we teach insert into from the very start, it should make it much easier for pupils to remember.
Yeah, okay. What about the delete queries?
Well, have a look at them now. It's a task description or exam question. In that respect, pupils should be looking out for wording such as like remove a record from the database.
Okay, and the scaffolding shows that the end user requirement always starts with the words the user should be able to remove.
That's right. And here we can see the scaffolding to help us come up with the matching functional requirement that goes with it.
So it would be a query to delete. Yeah, that looks like a new query design template. Am I right?
Yes, it is. It is. Again, no exemplification has been provided like by the SQA in the course appendices. But all that is needed to identify the type of query with the name is with the name of the relevant table and then the description of the condition that applies to that deletion as well.
Okay, and finally then what we have here is the syntax for a delete query, and it's important to remember that we should teach pupils delete from rather than just delete on its own.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, that seems pretty easy, but what type of delete queries are possible at higher level?
So in this example here, we've got a couple. So I'll read the one on the bottom left-hand side. The annual membership cost has increased by 15%. Sorry, technical issue, something's going crazy there. The annual membership cost has increased by 15%. Members whose increased membership cost will exceed £250, they wish to cancel their membership. So we've got to use a query to cancel the membership of any affected members.
Okay. So this is an example of a possible delete query, and the keyword being the word cancel, which has been highlighted.
Yeah, that's it, exactly. So to solve this problem, we needed to use a delete query with a computated value. So let's look at one more example. Do you want to do the top right?
Okay, so here we go. So the librarian has been asked to remove details of all books with the word floppy disk in their title. Use a query to perform this task. Okay. So here the word highlighted is remove, and that suggests that a delete query will be needed.
Well done. And what about this?
Okay. Okay, so looking at the highlighted words that are focusing on here are the details about which records are to be deleted.
Correct. And finally, what about this, David?
Okay, all right. Put me on the spot here. So this is the syntax for the query needed to perform the task. What we have here is a delete query with a wildcard being used in the where clause.
Exactly. And actually, the delete query makes use of the wildcard, which basically means that it has to be a higher query.
Okay.
Let's finish this quick revision by thinking about some of the update queries, because we know that they've been ones that the kids have struggled with, right?
Yeah.
So when we're reading an unfamiliar task, pupils should always start by analysing the requirements of the task.
Okay, so let me try that. Okay, so looking at the diagram at the top of the frame, I can see that the keywords to look out for are edit, alter, increase, change, decrease, and modify. And all these words suggest that an update query will be needed.
Yeah, so in this example, there's lots of different ways that they can be worded, but each of them means that the details stored in the database need to be changed in some way. So the use of increase or decrease would suggest a higher query with a computated value, perhaps. And then N5 update queries would use a static, like a static change that's stated in the task.
Okay, so looking at the scaffolding diagram, the end user requirement for this type of query always begins with the words the user should be able to edit.
Yes, and the scaffolding here reminds us that the match and functional requirements will always start with a query to update.
Okay, the query design template indicates the type of query, the table that needs to be updated, the change that is needed, and the condition that applies.
Yeah, and once again, like there's no examplification of this in the SQA appendices as the other ones we've looked at.
Yep.
So this shows us one way that we could present the information that might help the kids and would be needed at the design stage.
Okay, and finally we have the syntax for an update query, which is fairly straightforward. My question at this stage is the same as before, though, that what type of update queries would we expect to see at higher level?
Well, let's have a look at a couple of examples. So here's two examples of an update query that are possible at higher. I'll have a look at the bottom one again, right? So it says, oh, what's happened? Sorry. I don't know if you guys all seen that.
No, all right.
Anyway, so the annual membership cost for members aged 18 to 60 has increased by 15%. Use a query to edit the value of the payment due from all relevant members. So this is an example of a possible delete query, and the keyword edit has been highlighted.
Okay. And here, the details that tell us which records to update have been highlighted.
That's right. So we should only update the records of members that specifically are between the ages of 80 and 60. 18, sorry.
Okay. So this must be the query that would be needed to perform the task. Looking at the query, I can see that the set clause makes use of a computed value. So am I correct in saying that this is what makes it a higher query?
Absolutely, David. So to solve this program, we would need to use an update query with a computed value.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's
Okay.
look at the other example.
Okay. So I'll read this one. So the librarian has been asked to change the category of all books that have a word starting with the letter compute in their title to technology. Use a query to perform this task. Okay, so here the word highlighted is change, and that's what suggests that an update query will be needed.
Exactly. Okay. And what are we looking at now?
Okay, let me see. It looks like the highlighted words are telling us two things. They give us details about which records to update and also how those records are to be changed.
Perfect. Hey. And finally, what about this?
Here we go. Okay. So what we have here is the syntax of the query needed to perform the task. And looking at the code, I can see that a wildcard is used in the where clause. Well
spotted. So again, an update query that makes use of a wildcard means that it's a higher query.
Okay, I get it.
So to conclude, like look back at our update queries, I think that it would be good to just look at kind of two different problems maybe, and then think about the work that would need to be needed at each stage of the development process for them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, let's have a look. Here we go. So what we can see here is our two related tables. We've got the pupil table at the top and then the teacher table underneath. And we can also see the descriptions of the two problems that are to be solved using SQL queries. So let's have a look at these queries one at a time, yeah?
Okay.
So let's take the first one first. I'll put on a separate slide to make it easier.
Okay.
Okay. So let me start by reading the first problem and we'll have a little chat about it, right? Yep. So Miss Ray has just got married and her name is now Mrs. Bright. Common thing that would need to be updated.
Yep.
The school secretary needs to change this teacher's details, use a query to perform this task.
Okay. So looking carefully at the task description, I can see that the end user is the school secretary. And the keyword used in the problem description is change. And the keyword change tells me that an update query will be needed. And I think that this is a National 5 task, since the update value is a fixed value. And that was already stated in the description.
Yeah, absolutely correct. So
Okay.
at Nat 5 level, the pupils will only be expected to change values of a required field like to a fixed value that they've been given, but it's been definitely stated in the task. Do you think you'll be able to identify the end user and functional requirements?
Right. Let's see. Let's try it. Okay. Here we go. So using the scaffolding gives me the start of each sentence, and we finish each sentence by adding details about the update that is needed. So those details will essentially be lifted from the problem description. Am I right?
You're absolutely correct, David. So
Okay.
what we end up with for an end user requirement is something along the lines of the school secretary should be able to edit the name of the teacher called Miss Ray to Mrs. Bright.
Okay, and the functional requirement is a query to update the name of the teacher called Miss Ray to Mrs. Bright.
Brilliant, yeah.
Okay.
So here are the two requirements. You can see them written down. Oh, what's happened? Am I still presenting? You still see it okay?
Yeah.
That's fine. Sorry, my computer stayed offline. So hopefully you guys are still all right. I'll see if I can move between slides. So here are the two requirements there. And here's a reminder of the database schema as well, which is really important. So it lists the attributes stored in each entity and indicates the primary and foreign keys, which we were talking about before.
Okay, let me have a think. So the query should update the teacher's name. From the schema, I can see that the teacher's attribute is in the teacher table. So that must mean that it is the teacher table that has to be updated. Done.
Well done. Let's have a little look at the query design then.
Okay.
So the query needs to change the teacher name to Mrs. Bright, but only when the teacher name is Miss Ray currently. We must remember that we don't want the name, like to change the name of every teacher, only the specified ones that are mentioned in the task description. That's what we want the kids to do, right?
Yep. Okay, and here is the SQL syntax for the query needed to solve the problem. That's all pretty neat, but I mean, what's next?
So I suppose like in a classroom environment, the next stage would be to involve testing the query to make sure that the required update actually takes place. So although we aren't actually going to execute the query tonight, we could have a look at an example expected output and then see what goes from there.
Right.
Let's have a look.
So
Good.
I'm guessing that we are looking at here is the original task description, original teacher table, and a table showing the expected output.
That's right. And if the query is correct, what we would expect to see is that the name of the teacher of the P1A class has been replaced. And then that's what we can see on the right-hand side there in the expected output, yeah?
Yep, that's right.
Okay, let's go and have a look. So here's a table showing the actual output that ran from a query that we did. What do you think about it?
Well, it's clear that the teacher of P1A is still recorded as Miss Ray, so that hasn't been updated. But wait a minute, I mean, it looks like the teacher of P2A has been updated instead.
Exactly. So obviously we don't have the stuff on the first page, but it's a bit difficult. But let me show you the query that was actually executed. You see it?
I understand now. So the set clause is correct. It's the where clause that's incorrect.
Correct. So where the where clause could be written in two ways. We could probably write it as where teacher number equals P1A, or you could put it where teacher equals Miss Ray, like this.
Okay, so what we're saying here is that the query that was executed was incorrect?
That's exactly what we're saying. In fact, we could probably go further and actually evaluate the query.
Okay,
Session 1.
Yeah. I can remember from database session 1, when we evaluate a query, we think about whether it is fit for purpose and whether the output from the query is accurate.
That's right. And a query is considered fit for purpose if the original requirements have been fulfilled. So would you say that this answer is fit for purpose?
Absolutely not. So the query is not fit for purpose because the name of the teacher called Miss Ray hasn't been updated to Mrs. Bright. And this is because the condition in the where clause is wrong.
Exactly. And the good thing about your answer is you answered with a definite no, and then you gave the two reasons. One reason like relating back to the context, and then the second reason relating directly back to the SQL query, right? So what do we think then, if we've evaluated it on fit for purpose, like what do we think about the accuracy, would you say, of the query results?
That's a bit trickier. I mean, I think that the output from the query is not accurate, since the name of the query, the name of the teacher in class P2A has changed to Mrs. Bright, which means that it is now incorrect, and the database is storing inaccurate data. So the reason for this is the same as the last time an incorrect condition has been used in the where clause.
Nailed it, David. So again,
okay.
if you think about the pattern, you've answered with a definite no.
Right.
You've provided two reasons.
Okay.
One, always harping back to the context, and then the other one physically on the query syntax, yeah?
Okay, yeah, okay.
So let's finish off this section by looking at one more update query, right? That's a little bit more difficult, right?
Right.
So let me start by reading the problem and then we'll work through it. So
Okay.
during the summer, the school secretary updates each pupil's class by adding 1 to their current class. So we've asked to use a query to perform this task, all right?
Okay. So I know I need to start by analysing the requirements of the task. Looking at the problem more closely, I can see that the end user is still the school secretary, but the keyword used in the problem description this time is update.
That's correct. And because the updated value is going to be calculated by adding 1 to the current class, this is the type of update query we would expect our higher pupils to be doing instead of the Nat5s, yeah?
Yep. Okay. So we know that the end user, we know who the end user is, and we know what is required. So that means that the end user requirement would be the school secretary should be able to edit each child's class by adding 1 to their current class.
Yes, that's right. And then the functional requirement would be something along the lines of a query to update each child's class by adding 1 to their current class.
Okay. Yep.
Here are the requirements written down.
Okay.
And now that we've done the analysis, I think it's time to think about the design of the query, and let's have a little look at the database schema, yeah?
Okay. Okay, so looking at that database schema there, I can see that the attribute class is stored in the pupil entity. So it looks like the query should update values stored in the pupil table. Am I correct, Cam?
You are correct indeed. The query needs to change. It needs to change each child's class by adding 1 to the current class, and at this time, the query should apply to all records within that table, yeah?
Okay. And I can see that those details have been recorded in the query design.
Yeah, the query design that we talked about earlier. And this is the last step to write the SQL query itself.
Okay. And here it is. And it seems to be very simple. Hire query.
It is. I mean, since this change applies to every single child, the query doesn't really need a where clause.
Yep.
And the higher content is the calculation part of it, because we've got that computed value happening within the set clause.
Okay, I know that the next thing that should happen is that we should type up the query and execute it to test to see if it's working correctly.
That's right. But instead of executing the query, let's have a little look at an expected output.
Okay. Okay, so what I can see here is the original task description, the original pupil table, and a table showing the expected output.
Yeah, and if the query is correct, each pupil's class will be updated by adding 1 to their class from the original table, which is what we can see in the table of the expected output. So let's have a little look at the output produced by a query that we ran and see whether that's right or not.
Okay.
What do you think?
Okay, so let me see. It looks like the class has been updated as we expected. But, and correct me if I'm wrong here, am I right in saying that the values in the num siblings columns have also been updated?
You are very correct, David. Well spotted. I wonder if anyone else spotted it.
I'm an only child,
really
that's why I can tell.
Yeah, unless you've got the stuff in front of you, it'd be really easy to kind of overlook and not see that. And focus on only the fact that what you've tried to update has actually updated. It looks like this query has updated the values in 2 stored columns, which is definitely not something that was expected. So let's have a little look at the query that was put in and see if we can spot where we've went wrong.
Yeah. Okay, now I understand the problem. The set clause has been updated. It has updated the class correctly, but the num siblings has also been updated.
Yeah, so clearly wrong, but if we're talking about it from an evaluation point of view, let's work through what the evaluation is, right?
Okay.
So we need to evaluate the query in terms of fitness for purpose and the accuracy of its output, right? This is where it gets confusing.
Yeah, right. Okay, well, so, I mean, the query has updated each child's class correctly. So that means that the query is fit for purpose, I think.
No, yeah. So against our better judgment, you're
Yeah.
absolutely correct, right? The functional requirement states that a query should update each child's class by adding one to their current class, and this query actually does that, which means it is fit for purpose.
Okay, right. So a complete evaluation would be something like this. Okay, so I'll try it. So although the query also updates the values stored in the num siblings column, the query is fit for purpose because it does meet the original requirement to update each child's class by adding one. And this is because the set clause of the query correctly increments the class.
Exactly. And again, you answered with a definite yes. You gave that full explanation we'd like to see from the kids. It refers back to the context of the task. And as always, David, you remember to refer to the query syntax,
Okay,
right?
yeah.
So what do you think then about the accuracy of the query output?
Yeah, so I mean, I don't think that the output can be accurate, but I'm not too sure.
You're right, yeah. So the output from the query is absolutely not accurate, right? And although each child's class has actually been updated correctly, the value, as you've said before, shown in the number siblings column has also been increased by 1, which means that the data that's now stored in there is inaccurate. And then this inaccuracy, because of the set clause, it kind of incorrectly increments both the classes, and then the number of siblings columns together, which means it's wrong.
Okay, I mean, it's good to know that I was right about the accuracy of the query and the complete evaluation. I can understand how in your answer you clearly stated that the query results were not accurate, and you provided 2 reasons, one referring back to the context of the task and the other referring back to the SQL code. It makes sense when you follow that pattern.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think that it'll really help the pupils as well, like when you're building up those answers.
Yeah.
It's something that my kids are really not good at is evaluation.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that was a really useful session, having the chance to have a look back over the insert, the delete, the update queries, remind everyone that it's really important still to keep covering these at higher, because I think it's something we don't do enough. Yeah.
Definitely. I also think that it was really useful to kind of remind ourselves how to form the requirements needed at the analysis stage, and also about the criteria used to evaluate a query.
Yeah, so let's have a little look at a little bit of SQA coursework, course reports, and see how we can then maybe help our students further.
Okay, I think that's a really good idea. I'm just about to start coursework, and I know that through these sessions there are some questions students are always making mistakes on. So let's see what the markers report says.
Okay. So here we've got some information. The SQA course reports are written by the principal assessor of each course, and then they give details about how candidates did in the course assignment and obviously the exam. The comments in the course report give us information about how candidates coped with individual tasks and individual questions, what they did well, and then obviously what they've had difficulties with. You can see here in this example, we've got some green points and we've got some red points. The green highlights are what many students are doing well. So we know that many is around this over 70%, I think it is.
Okay.
So what many students are doing well, and then obviously the red points are where the majority of students are really struggling to access some or even all of the marks.
Yeah, actually, it doesn't look too bad, does it? I mean, there are more green comments than red. I'm guessing that's a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think the majority of our students are managed to access most of the marks in the database section, but they're just making some small errors that hopefully that by doing some of the stuff we can help with.
Okay, so what I can see here, many students are really good with the database basics, data dictionary, the keys, validation, etc. And most are coping with the complex conditions, which is something I thought actually students would find hard.
Yeah, I know that certainly some of mine struggle when there's more than one condition, but rather than focus on the positives, let's have a little look at what some of the where they aren't achieving marks and some of the red ones. Yeah.
Okay, right. So looking at that top one, they often forget to add the equijoin. I've had my students do that so many times. Very frustrating. Yeah. And they recognize that there are too many rows because when they see all the data, they just can't work out how to fix it.
I agree. There's always that one person in the class who forgets the equijoin, and it's so frustrating not be able to help them when they're doing their coursework and you're just standing back So looking down the list, we can also see things like functional requirements, which we covered quite a lot, and evaluation is another task that pupils really struggle with.
Well, hopefully after the last few sessions, we now have some tools to help our students with these areas.
I think we really do. I think it's really helpful. And I know the resources that we've made are helping, certainly in my class. And if we have a look at like even the bottom red bubble where it says candidates are not submitting all of their evidence, so they're not accessing marks, it's just crazy.
So it's not that they can't do it, they just haven't printed off all the screenshots.
Exactly. But if you look at the bottom right green point, if they have the checklist from the coursework document, the student is more likely to get higher marks.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, should we have a look at the higher course reports now?
Yes, I think we should. Let's have a look.
Okay.
So let's have let's have a little second just for everyone to have a read of some of these, because I'm not sure most of us will have had a look at them, but
yes, a wee swatch.
have a little second to look at them. Obviously, same as last time, the green speech bubbles are the good ones, the red ones, and the not so good ones.
Yeah, okay. I'm just kind of scanning them just now. Have a quick look at them. The reports are saying that the majority of pupils are good at writing SQL code.
Yeah, I think that's what the course report was saying. Like many of the pupils, they can write SQL with equijoins, aggregate functions, use group bys, wildcards, and are thereby accessing most of the marks available from these big questions.
Yeah, that's actually that's really good news, because I mean there are big mark questions in the database task. Let's take a moment to read the red speech bubbles to find out what they're struggling with. So, functional requirements, equijoins, and not submitting all the evidence. That's pretty much the same as National 5.
It's right. It's exactly the same as National 5, right? The join issue is obviously, when they're using the inner join. So we need to make sure pupils use the correct join from the arrangements, I think, making sure they're getting that right. Yeah,
okay. And that's the equijoin, isn't it? There's no other join in the higher course, is there?
No, even actually only advanced higher, it's only the equijoin they use.
Okay.
So let's have a little look at some of the resources that can help some of the students with these errors that they're coming across, right?
I remember Big Scotland. This is in the join slides from our last session, wasn't it?
Yeah. So what we've done is we've taken the slides that we talked about Cartesian product for anyone who was with us for the last session, session 3. We used these in the last session, and basically what we've done is turned them into a poster that teachers can display on their wall. We were having a look at it on Saturday, actually, weren't we, in our session. So these could be something you could print out and give to the students. They could put in their folders, or you could just have on the wall.
Yeah, that would definitely go on my wall. Hopefully students will remember if it's, if they get the Cartesian product, then they can fix their code.
Yeah, and also getting added to these slides will be like the link to the resource. So you can see on the right hand side, it hopefully everyone can see that. There's like the wee Team C Google Drive icon over on the right. Give us a thumbs up if you can see that. That's going to be linked to the resource, so you can get access to this, guys. Okay.
Oh, that's amazing. I'm also seeing a video link there.
Yeah, so once Brendan has finished editing the videos like from last session and this session, the link to the exact chapter in the video will be added.
So you don't have to watch the whole video all the way through, it'll just take you straight there.
Amazing.
Okay, I really like that. So so I can go straight to the video that goes with the resource. That's brilliant.
Yeah, just to give that a wee bit of recap, yeah?
Yeah.
Well, let's look at another way we could help some of our students then.
Okay. So this must surely be an easy one for teachers to help with. Simply give the students the checklist from the coursework document.
Exactly. Get it printed. Give a copy to your students.
Yeah, right. I can easily fix that. I know the SQA also provide guidelines, but what assistance we can give with regards to evidence.
Yeah, I think this is one that people maybe don't read closely enough. So the advice in the recent course report says, and I quote here, centres should ensure candidates know what evidence they need to provide for the task and how to generate it. Right. So, and the course assessment documentation gives also, like says this quote, it says, you can provide reasonable assistance to support candidates with the following aspects of their assignments. And then it lists printing, collating, and labelling their evidence. Okay,
so if I know that they have completed the task and they aren't sure what to print, I can help them with that?
Yeah, and that's what the course report directly says. As teachers, we can clarify to pupils exactly what evidence they need to print.
Yeah.
The evidence checklist is obviously really helpful. I always get our students to sit with a checklist in front of them. We have it in the packs we give them. And then they can work through their checklist at their desk. And they're told to start at the top and work their way down the checklist. And then as they tick each one off, make sure they've got the matching like output in their evidence pile in their folders.
Yeah, that's good to know. So you're always kind of worried about what you can and cannot do, you know, giving them too much help or not. But the key thing here is that we print the checklists. Yeah, got it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, each student should have their own copy of the checklist as well, but it's also worth adding, I think, that teachers can, and probably should, remind the students to label each printout with a task number and their name and their candidate number, and it tells them to do this on the checklist, but I think sometimes the candidates just overlook it.
Yeah, tell me about it. I am rabid about them using the header or footer for their name and their kind of candidate number, so it appears on both sides of the evidence submitted, you know, just in case.
Yeah.
Okay, I mean, that's been really helpful, but what about the kind of analysis of requirements and evaluations? You know, the SQA course reports are telling us that this is something that isn't done well. Are there any resources that can help with this?
There are. So let's look at the posters that we've produced to help pupils with functional requirements and evaluations, yeah?
Yeah.
So here are the two posters that could be displayed in your classroom.
Brilliant. Okay, so the first poster shows the scaffolding for our end user and functional requirements, and the second poster has evaluation advice. I know that the same scaffolding and advice that was used earlier tonight, but it was introduced back in session 1, which was so long ago I'd actually forgotten about them.
I know, and it's also worth pointing out that the NAT 5 version of the requirements poster is going to be coming out. We chatted about that on Saturday, so that's going to be coming out too. Yeah,
that's really good news, Kim. So that'll be very useful, and I know a few people requested this at our in-person event on Saturday. Now, are those links to videos that I see again?
Yes, so again, the links here are going to take you to the relevant chapter from session 1's video and talk you through how to use each poster. So if you've missed that session or whatever, you can go straight to the bit where we're talking about that specific poster, and hopefully it'll help people.
Brilliant. The video links are really going to help. There's been so much in the sessions that it's kind of hard to remember it all, especially kind of back in session 1. We've been heavily involved in it, and even tough for me to remember, you know, which resource came from which session. Okay, so I mean, we've looked at resources to help students with the sections they don't do well in. Will we have a quick look at what has been in the coursework over the last few years?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Let's have a look. I think a few people will have done this already anyway, but it's great to look at. So while we should never try to predict what is coming up in the course assignments, obviously, in case we get it wrong, it can be useful to look back at the tasks and kind of just to see what's appeared in the previous SQA assignments.
Yeah, I agree. But I mean, looking at the table, you can see that listing the attributes, the data dictionaries are very common. The select will possibly be in the complex condition with an equijoin, and then insert, update, or delete. And for testing, a question about unexpected output is quite common.
Exactly. The question about unexpected output, I think, usually refers to like an SQL statement that has an error and the student has to maybe rewrite it or something like that. Yeah.
Okay. Yep.
Let's have a little look at higher then underneath.
Okay.
We see.
Yeah, so analysis and design, functional requirements, and entity occurrence diagrams are pretty common.
Yeah, I think they are. And actually, by the look at the implementation, aggregate functions, group by, they're coming up every single year. And so does like a query that uses the results of another query in some respect. Okay,
so we should be highlighting this to our students and saying that, well, we cannot guarantee those tasks. If I was getting ready for the coursework, I'd be making sure that I could do those type of SQL problems.
Yes, I will definitely be doing with my kids as well, and making sure they're aware that they're likely to be other questions other than these ones. Just
yeah, definitely. I mean, you can't fully predict kind of based on previous tasks, but we can at least give some indication of what to expect.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's have a little look at the last set of resources that have been created and the use of which is the use of templates, and see how these can be helpful for some of our students. All right.
Okay.
So. Do you remember this diagram, David?
I mean, I remember it. That was used in session 2 when we highlighted lots of common SQL errors and design misconceptions.
That is right.
Yeah.
So that's the session where we looked at the research into difficulties that students have had when learning SQL, and the most frequent errors they make The one source of the error mentioned in the diagram we didn't look at detail was cognitive overload.
Yeah, we talked about the research that has been carried out about cognitive overload when creating SQL queries. Research findings showed that the more demanding a query is, the more likely students have to suffer from cognitive overload because human brains can only deal with a maximum of 3 or 4 things at once.
Exactly. Now, if we think about the SQL query, we need to think about the correct syntax, the correct sequence of the keywords, the correct execution sequence, and we need to remember the full database structure on top of that.
Definitely.
You know, what tables we need to use and how to form any joins that are needed as well, which is just crazy.
Yeah, when you say that, like, not is it a lot for pupils to kind of cope with, you know, no wonder they often mix up the kind of the order of the SQL statements. So does the research suggest, I mean, what can we do to kind of help our pupils kind of reduce the cognitive overload?
Well, the answer may surprise you, actually. It's something that we're already using when select queries are being designed, and it's templates.
Okay, so you're referring to the query design template that is in the appendices of the course specification and appears in the exam questions?
Yes, that is the one. And that's the one here, yeah. So here's the query design template that's used at a higher level.
Okay.
Let's look at how that maybe could be extended to maybe an even more useful resource for students to help reduce the problem of cognitive overload, yeah?
Okay.
So expand that out.
There you go.
What do you think of this one?
Okay, let me get a wee look. Oh, I can see the query design template from before, but I can also see that there's room at the top to write in the database schema.
Yeah, so I think writing out the database schema is really going to help students like focus on the database structure before they then try to write any SQL. Like you could have them complete the query design like at a desk away from a computer, and it helps them really focus on the tables and fields before they have to then worry about any SQL syntax or anything like that.
That makes sense. Yeah. We give them the steps to build up to the SQL, create the full database schema from the database dictionary or ERD, fill in the query design template just with the details that are needed, and then finally you write the SQL.
Yeah, and hopefully I think that will help reduce the cognitive overload because they're not all thinking about everything all at once.
Yeah, when you say that totally makes sense to me. I've got a wee question about the equijoin. I mean, should it be included in the design template?
So this is something that we've went back and forward with. It's a really good question. So students are obviously not going to get marks in the exam for including the join in their answer, like in a query design question. If you look at the marking schemes, there are no marks allocated to it. But that being said, we've been discussing like elements of the course reports, and both at National 5 and at higher, they keep saying to us, candidates are struggling with the equijoin.
Yep.
So if you look at the select syntax down the bottom, where it's given the bottom of the design template, you'll see that we've added like in the where clause, include equijoin if required, like in the brackets at the end. Yep. And I think that will hopefully be a wee prompt to students to then go and create and add that in when they're making their SQL.
Okay, so that should be really helpful. Do we have templates that we can use for the other types of SQL queries?
Yeah, so on the right here, if we have a little look, this is one for update.
Okay.
Same idea, yeah? So you can see at the top, the schemas there, again, trying to prevent that cognitive overload, so getting the kids to fill out first. And you can also see the basic syntax at the bottom for an update query.
Okay, so let me see and let me have a think about how to fill this one out. So the query type would be an update. The table, this would just be whatever table I'm updating.
Yeah.
The change, this would be the change to the column, or at higher, the calculation that was needed. And the condition, this would be which row or rows have to be updated.
Absolutely. And hopefully, I think these are like straightforward enough that students will be able to get them.
Yeah, I'm thinking it'd be really, really useful for kind of higher students. We saw earlier how much they struggle identifying update queries and then write the clauses in the wrong order. I honestly think this resource could help them, especially with the syntax there as well.
Yeah, and actually, if you look at the post-it in the middle, that link there, that's a link to the folder of where these templates are, again, ready for teachers just to download and use with their classes. So there's no reason we could be downloading them now and use them for assignment.
That's great that they're ready to go. So what other resources are there?
Well, we've also produced templates for the insert and the delete ones. Shall we have a look at them?
Yeah.
Give us a thumbs up if you're liking the look of these guys, if they look like they're going to help. So here's the insert template. Yeah, people look like here's the insert template, and it follows the kind of same pattern, obviously, as the select and the update. So could you see how to fill this one in, David?
Yeah, we look. So the query type would be insert. The table, this would just be the name of the table that I'm adding to our new record to. The fields would be the list of the field names in the order that I'm inputting the data. And the values would be the data items that are entered into the fields. And these should be in the same order as the list of the field names.
Absolutely brilliant. So let's have a little look at a template for delete lastly.
Okay.
Do you want to do this?
Yeah, I'll do it again. So I'm kind of getting the hang of this now. So right, let's go. So the query type, this would be delete. The table, this would be the table that the data you want to remove from. And the condition would be how to narrow down the rows that are being deleted.
Correct again. And hopefully these will be really helpful for students, yeah?
Okay, this section has been really helpful, looking at some of the resources that we've made over the last 4 sessions. The resources were made based on the markers feedback from SQA.
Yeah, and hopefully like what we've developed will be really helpful for all you guys out there as well. And you find them really useful. So let's move on to the last STACS 2024 online upskilling feedback.
Wow.
So I'll hand over to David and you can take the feedback forward, yeah?
Yeah, let's go for it. So since this is our final online session, we would like to spend some time kind of getting feedback about the STACS online events this year, and particularly the database section.
Yeah. Getting feedback from the participants is really helpful. It's important to gather feedback from the participants to enable the STACS to continue their works and hopefully persuade the Scottish government to release more funding.
Yeah, that's what we're looking for.
For the next year, I mean.
Yeah, definitely. So what we would like to do is just to spend the remaining time this evening kind of gathering feedback from all the participants about the database sessions and about what people would like the STACS teams to do in the possible future sessions.
So let's start with the 4 online events that cover database content.
Yeah, so okay. So in our first session, we looked at the analysis of the database requirements and the evaluation of database queries. Yeah,
so when we were planning our second online session, we used the results of the academic research into the difficulties that learners have with the SQL to highlight the importance of understanding how a database has been structured. During the session, we focused on how to structure the database entities efficiently, the importance of database schemas, and common misconceptions people have about database design.
Yeah. So in the third database session, we focused on the implementation of SQL queries. We covered the use of equijoins and the sequence of execution. It was during this session that we introduced the Cartesian product that is produced when an equijoin is omitted from the query.
Yes, and recognizing the Cartesian, I hope I'm saying that right, the Cartesian product is easy to spot since the answer table is always so big. Hopefully, knowing the reason that this has been generated will help pupils to be more independent when debugging this problem and remind them that they need an equijoin. During the session, we also had some time to look into the detail and grouping data, which is something that higher pupils often have difficulty with.
Yeah, and finally, this evening's session where we have focused on delete and update queries, preparation for the SQA course assessment, and the use of templates to reduce cognitive overload.
Yeah, it would be really useful if everyone could take a few minutes to give us some feedback on the database content that we have covered in the last 4 online sessions. You don't have to give us any feedback on everything, but if there is any content that you have found especially helpful, we would really like to know.
Yeah. So yes, even if you weren't so sure about some of the content, we'd still be interested in having that feedback as well. We've prepared 5 feedback frames, 1 frame for each session, and the final frame is to gather more generic feedback just about the STACS program in general and what you would like to see in future online events.
Yeah, so as we have mentioned earlier this evening, a huge bank of useful resources for teachers and for the classroom have already been produced by the STACS team and have been made available. These resources include printed materials and posters, videos from the online sessions, and files for use in the classrooms. So if you have any ideas about materials that you would love the STAC team to develop, please add that information to the final feedback frame.
Cool. Thanks, Siobhan. I'm going to stop the presentation now to give everyone a chance to kind of look at the feedback frames, and you can add your thoughts there. So that's the presentation finished. You can use your own mouse now, and we're looking for feedback session 1 frame. If you can see my name, David Jack, you can follow my cursor. I'm just at it just now. Okay, I just seen a lot of cursors coming this way. Is there anybody lost at the moment? No, a few people start to come down, but yeah, I can see the majority of us are there. Okay, so you can fill it in there. I really like the scaffolding. Brilliant. That's good. That's one of my favorites as well. On Saturday, that got like really good feedback face to face. Everyone really loved the scaffolding.
Yeah. If there's loads of people commenting the first one, guys, you don't need to do them in any particular order. So
Yeah.
all of the 4 sessions are across there.
Yeah.
Feel free to bounce between them as you get ideas or you see what other people have written and make comments. The more feedback we get, the better, basically.
Yeah.
We're funded by the Scottish Government, so obviously anything we can take back, positive or even negative or otherwise or whatever, will help us to develop stuff in the future. Anything you can give us for things that you still need would be really beneficial.
Yeah.
I actually like the fact that Morag has put all the different bits on the slides, like on the board, so you can see.
Mm-hmm.
I really struggled on Saturday talking to people, being like, oh, what was that? What session was that from?
I can't remember what was what, so it's good to kind of look at this and the wee diagrams kind of remind us what was covered.
Yeah, been so much packed into each one, I think.
Yeah.
Oh, there's Al. Hi, Al. Mr. Friend.
Hi, Al.
Sad.
I hope the weather's better. I'm sorry that was it a boat was cancelled or was it the flight was cancelled on Saturday? Sorry about that.
I went to type in the chat. His little cursor disappeared.
Yeah, unfortunately, it was the plane. All the planes were cancelled,
and
there was no ferry as well.
Oh, nightmare!
I was
thinking of you.
Next time.
Yeah, that's it. I suggested that we're going to start a loyalty program for these sessions going forward.
Yeah. I think next time, if there's a loyalty program, the people that attend the most get to take away the onion badges. How good were they?
Yeah. I got a packet of crisps.
A doggy bag.
Right. I'm just going to dive into some of these here.
Yeah, they look great.
This is Cartesian product, and the order of execution is very helpful. Knowing sequence, yeah. Brilliant. Thank you for this feedback. This is really good, by the way. It's always awkward when you ask for feedback and people don't give you anything. So this is brilliant.
Yeah. I really like the prompt for the evaluation. I think that's something the kids really struggle with. This, like, even just understanding the difference between fitness for purpose and accuracy. Mm-hmm. There's so many of my kids who would have looked at that example we talked about today and said that it wasn't fit for purpose because it updated the other additional field.
Yeah.
Which you understand, Yeah.
And I also think a lot of people are just so keen to get the written questions over and done with that they'll just put an answer down quickly so they can move on to the stuff.
Especially evaluation comes last, isn't it?
Yeah, I know. When they just spend a little bit of time so they're not throwing those marks away.
Mm-hmm. Like I've spent so long on my coding, I'm just going to throw something in at the end.
Yeah, exhausted, right? That'll do.
I know.
Breaking down the many-to-many was very useful. Yeah, great. And I think the many-to-many relationships, I mean, there is a kind of structure to that as well. They don't need to overthink that.
Yeah. There's Tony. Hi, Tony.
Hello.
We've just been talking about your lovely classroom earlier on.
Do the session on Barra. I'm up for it. I'm in. I'm absolutely in. I've never been. I'll bring my flip-flops.
Yeah. If you have finished all of the STACS sessions 1 to 4, guys, do come along and have a look at the last slide. I keep calling it a slide. I suppose it should be board, really.
Yes, that's
right.
Look
at, and all the cursors come. It's really cool. Coming up, look at the last one.
Yeah, the roadmap.
Yes.
Right? Yeah.
Future sessions.
The future sessions.
Oh,
one.
yeah, future
so
sessions.
So it's split up into 4 sessions. So it's like, what things do you want us to keep? What did you like? it's not me and David talking, we're okay with it.
Yeah, it's all right. Yeah.
Improve, get people who talk slower. You know, what do you want to keep? What did you not like? Is there anything you feel we could drop? Is there anything else you want us to add, or is there anything that you didn't like? I was quite pleased on Saturday because the only real feedback we had that the people didn't like the word Cartesian.
Yeah, they found that.
That was the bit. That was the only bit of negative feedback, really.
Although you did give me some feedback. I mean, you said that I was more Glaswegian in real life.
I know. You are though. You must have a telephone voice.
That's it.
A Zoom
That's my
voice.
teaching voice. I pick on my throat there. Apologise.
Presenters are very professional. They've obviously been going to the other sessions, David.
Yes. Yes.
Obviously, as well, if you have been at any of the other sessions and not just all the database ones, do feel these comments will all go to Brendan and he'll collate them anyway. So feel free to say that you liked software better than us, but we will hate you forever.
I just want to know if there was any arguments about which language was best when they were doing them. That's why I want to go back and see if there was any drama.
I know, because there wasn't much chat about SQL versus Access or anything. And
No drama, drama free.
I bet there would have been a wee bit of VB versus Python. Well, David, me and you wouldn't.
No, don't start. We're okay. There's been no drama. Let's keep it this way. The live code was brilliant. Love it. Sorry, that sounded mean there. No,
was that in the chat?
Yeah, in the Google chat. Yeah, brilliant. The most annoying thing with live code, and I could definitely tell it was they were like, yeah, come and use our free software. Yeah, schools, come and take it. Yeah, this is brilliant. We'll help you out. And then as soon as live code, was it not? It was only in schools for 5 years. Then they wanted to start charging for it. I think if my memory serves me correct, that was the story. But
ridiculous.
I could be wrong. But that's what I remember.
That's ridiculous.
What held us back? Oh, I'd be interested in all that. Okay. What was slow? What was, Oh, what else should we do? Right, okay. Past paper session. Oh, great idea. Some good, bad sample. Yeah, we did. So is it in session 1 where Debbie she went looking for bad answers in our class? She went and she got our class to try and write poor answers down. So then we brought the poor answers in and then we used them in the session and tried to improve on them.
I discovered that none of my kids knew what a functional requirement was 2 weeks after I taught it.
But do they now, Debbie? That's the point.
Yeah,
they better. They've got coursework in 2 weeks.
Have you got your poster on the wall?
My poster is well up in the wall.
I've not done it yet. That's Wednesday's job. I've got an in-service day, and we all know how much free time we get during the service days. So I'll definitely have time to put the poster up.
Cool. Right, I'm going to zoom out now and just check if any people are still editing. Just looking to give people maybe a couple of minutes to finish off, and then we'll go and do the roadmap, will we?
Yes, absolutely.
Finished typing.
I'm enjoying reading these.
Look at it.
I think Brendan is trying to give some clues there regarding the timings.
Yeah.
On the improve session.
Adding timings. Yeah. What do people? Yeah. Oh, there's some questions on the improve. Yeah. What do people think of some of the questions that have been put on that section? Can you see it? So, do you think there was too many sessions, too few? What do you think about how closely they were together? Like, obviously, some people were along on Saturday, and then you got a session this week. Is that too much for this time of year? Would you like them to be different? I mean, just talking because I've got a microphone in front of my face, but I mean, I know that definitely there's been a lot of sessions, and I've not even made it along to the sessions that I want to. But what I'm really happy about is that the resources and the videos are there for us to go back and use. So definitely think there's been so much sessions, but that's kind of a good thing because it means I can go back and now watch it in my own time. It would have been great to be there and kind of interact with the presenters and kind of ask questions, but as we know as teachers, we just cannot do it all. But it's going to be great that we can kind of go back and look over these in our own time, at our own pace. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, what happens for me?
He's coming up with another question. Would people be up for in-person?
In Barra?
Your own council areas? Yes. This is what me and Brendan were talking about on Saturday. I was like, you need to bring the information to the people.
Yes. Rather than bring the people to the information,
Is there a way we can thumbs that up? I'm going to say it again. I'm going to read out Brendan's thing. If anyone agrees, thumbs up to save you type in, right? Would people be up for an in-person in their own council?
Yeah.
That said loads of D's. David, was that just you 40 times?
No,
We got an L.
that
was
wasn't me. It wasn't me.
Yeah. I think that's good because I was talking to my head teacher about this actually, and I was just saying, like, when I did subject network lead in Fife, and I know that like quite a lot of people, it hasn't been like a lot of East Coast people certainly that were there on Saturday, but we were talking about how like when I did subject network lead, like every year we would have a full set inset day, and then it was like a half inset day a year, and then it was just an afternoon, and then it just sort of disappeared. And I think that was just so important because there's a lot of one-man bands of people who are absolutely knackered, especially at this time of year, who are just needing, you know, who want to do the CPD, but for various reasons can't, you know, like even people like me, you know, like I work 4 days and whatever, but I still think I would struggle to like do loads of stuff on a Saturday or evening things when you've got young kids or whatever. It's just hard. So I think that's what inset day should be for, not sitting and learning about child protection for the 400.
Totally. And that's what I've kind of enjoyed a lot about the kind of these STACS sessions, as you've kind of said, the one-man bands. That there are people, and I forget, I take it for granted. I'm teaching in Glasgow. There's plenty of computing teachers I can go and talk to, and I'm meeting some on Wednesday, but there are people out there that's just not an option. So these STAC events have been great to kind of meet people who I wouldn't have met before and to kind of just talk about good practice.
Yeah. I think even for like, but I do think it's good to do cross council too. Like the one we did on Saturday was good because, as you were saying, there was loads of people from private schools who maybe don't have that authority connection. There was people coming from the Western Isles, as Al's just said there. The other two are 140 miles away. So like it's given people more of an opportunity to network out with their councils, which I think is really good. But I do think that, you know, even if we can't even collaborate within councils, like how are we meant to make it go national? Do you know? And if maybe we were collaborating more at a authority level, like when I said, oh guys, we're doing this really good CPD, you should come along, we would have more people at the national events because you would be talking about it more and people would be saying, oh, like, have you actually seen this poster? Like, have it up in your classroom. It will really help with your, you know, with your assignment and stuff. So
magic.
It helps. Did anyone have anything else? Like I did, I was going to say David there. Brendan's put quite a lot of questions on the improve one. So if there's anything that anyone wants to add or answer, then we'll just give a couple more minutes, I think.
Yeah, I would also say if this kind of board doesn't kind of fit what you want to say, feel free just to put it in the Google chat as well if you're looking for kind of a little bit more space to write what you want to say. But yeah, there's loads in the ad. I'm going to look at these as well. Training courses.
Yeah.
Run more in-person sessions, definitely. An anonymous form. I think that's absolutely fair. I think that's really good.
Yeah. I love the bit that someone said in the Keep one, the videos with the chapters are my favourite. I think that is just game-changing, isn't it? Because you don't want to be searching through a whole video when it was just, and especially because they are 90 minutes. Like you don't want to be finding the 10 minutes that you just need at that section when you're trying to look for something. I think that's really good. And people will be able to test them now that you're on the normal board. Hopefully you should be able to maybe click on some of the links, the ones that look like they're live. You could try them for getting resources and things. Excuse me. Right. Shall we?
Yeah.
Move, do we think?
Thank you so much for all that information. That's going to be so useful for us. Great.
Okay, so thank you everyone for taking some time to share your thoughts and to leave us a little bit of feedback. It's really, really going to help us at the STACS team to kind of shape some of the future work and hopefully secure some funding for further sessions. As you can see here on the roadmap, we've come to the last of our 4 database sessions and last of all the sessions, I think. Or last as well. Yeah. So the resources that have been created by the 3 teams of presenters, the software development, the web, and then obviously us, the database team, they've all been made into classroom materials and you're going to be able to get access to them on the STACS website itself. We would really like to arrange more STACS events, maybe before the summer.
Yes, please.
So whether these are going to be local or national events yet, they're still to be decided, but we'd really love to hear your thoughts. So please stay in touch, you know, get involved with STACS. And hopefully by working together, we can build a really strong network of computing science teachers. So I just want to finally finish up by saying thank you again for taking part. And yeah, feel free to stay for the after party. Or put our cameras on and have a wee chat. My gin's not even here. Morag is down the stairs.
Sorry.
That's okay. But
You can still imagine it. You imagine it.
yeah, but if there's anything people want to stay for, any questions, then feel free to stay about. I'll leave that maybe up rather than the after party because it's got a lot of stuff on it, will I?
Yeah, that's a good shout. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been great kind of doing these, and thank you to everybody who's came along. Without you, it would have been very awkward and strange.